There is a whole world of cinema to be discovered. You just have to overcome that 1-inch barrier known as subtitles. This is that 1-inch barrier. Nick Barry, Josh Barry, and Kieran Griffiths. Gentlemen, welcome back to Bong Joon-ho.
What a month.
What a month. And you know what? It's basically Christmas for international cinephiles,
That's
I
right.
would say. The second film, this is the second week of this celebration of our patron saint of the podcast, Mr. Bong Joon-ho, South Korean filmmaker. Thank you for watching the Memories of Murder episode last week. We hope you enjoyed it. But we're back with his follow-up film this week to Memories of Murder. The Host, a sci-fi film, an epic monster film.
Creature feature.
A creature feature, which, in the early 2000s, I think was usually just restricted to like Godzilla. That's about it. And King Kong.
Yeah.
And look at them now, they teamed up. So it's nice to see what...
Cinema's peaked.
Cinema did peak. What is it, like one of the highest grossing films of the year? Come on, guys. We know it works. But in saying that, it's kind of fun to see a creature feature from the perspective of a South Korean filmmaker, you know? So it's pretty exciting. But before we get into that, I guess we'd not seen The Host before.
No.
No, now I did remember though, quite a few years back, I put it on.
Sure.
And I got about 20 minutes in and I turned it off.
Oh.
I think I just...
I hope that's not indicative of
Yeah, it bodes well.
At that point, I kind of didn't know what I was watching. I didn't, Parasite hadn't come out. I didn't know Bong Joon.
I guess he wasn't a huge name
And it was just a
outside
bit of what is this? It seems
South
like
Korea.
a B movie sort of
Yeah.
creature feature sort of film.
Sure.
But,
And it's a real departure from what he'd done previously
Yeah.
in sort of a very, surrealist comedy almost in Barking Dogs.
Yes.
Yep.
Followed up by, a detective crime thriller in Memories of Murder. And he's not really done anything like this
No.
since.
No.
Like Snowpiercer's got sci-fi elements.
But it's,
Oksha has the fantasy aspect.
Yeah.
But this is like a full-blown, like you said, monster movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty out there for who is a mainstream director, if not in the English language, but in Korean
Absolutely,
cinema.
and because this was regarded as one of the most successful South Korean films
At the time it
at
was.
the time. It was,
At the time it was the biggest grossing Korean film.
Yeah, made a ton of money. He got a huge budget off of the back of the success of Memories of Murder.
Yeah.
They
And when
went
we're
with
talking huge budget, it wasn't... For Korea it was huge, but it was like 11 million US.
Yeah. But that's a lot of money to give, South Korean director making a South Korean movie in his third film.
Yeah.
He was hugely successful over there.
Yeah.
Interesting, watching an interview with him, 4.5 million of that was for CGI.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense.
And he had to, originally they had 160 shots of CGI. And just because of that budget restraint, he ended up bringing it down to about 110.
Wow. Because the monsters in the film
Yeah.
a lot, especially towards that.
Yeah.
Well, you get the giant scene, opening scene, I guess, and then he's
and done by
quite
Weta.
prominent. Done by the team at Weta,
yeah.
who, if you don't know who they are, infamous for doing Oscar-winning work on Lord of the
Ooh, I've got a
Rings.
little Weta.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They've done everything. They do fantastic CGI, but they do practical creature
Avatar.
effects and stuff.
Yeah,
Avatar.
yeah.
So that these
So
guys.
basically, any of the best CGI
Yeah.
work
Planet of
probably
the Apes, Kingdom and Planet of the Apes. Yeah.
that's been done in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It's Weta.
It's Weta. Especially anything that's based around not human.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
creatures.
But
Creatures.
what I
of the
did
sea.
find interesting, he brings up in that interview, he brings up Spielberg.
Okay.
And because of the budget restraints, he really got inspired from Jaws.
Right. Yes.
And,
How creative Spielberg had to
Exactly.
get with that because the shark malfunctioned.
That's
for
Yeah.
right.
So much so.
the entire shoot.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they had to get real creative
yeah.
with it.
So he did the same thing. Yeah.
Because I did read, so there's obviously a lot of shots in the film where this sea creature jumps into the water and the water splashes, like it looks incredible, but they were like, we were just throwing barrels into the water to create this effect and then so it's incredible, it's genius filmmaking, not just from a storytelling perspective of someone who is at the level of Bong Joon-ho, but just the practicality of it as well is kind of, a cinephile's wet dream, to be fair. It's quite fun.
Yeah.
We've talked about the film. Do you want to tell us what it's actually about?
Yes, I do. So we see the return of Song Kang-ho, who was in Memories of Murder. So it's the second time and not the last time he's worked with Bong Joon-ho. And he's described in the film as a slow-witted man who runs a snack shack basically in South Korea. And there is a giant monster who comes. This is skipping over a little bit of the start because I want to talk about what the actual opening scene of the film kind of talks about. But the general vibe of the film is a giant sea creature attacks this small town in South Korea and kidnaps his daughter after massacring a lot of people. Kidnaps his daughter, so he must work with his family, his dysfunctional family, in order to try and get his daughter back after he finds out she's actually alive after being kidnapped by this monster. So it's a creature feature in every sense of the word, but it's also a Bong Joon-ho film in every sense of the word, based on a lot of the commentary he has, not just this time around how the South Korean government would react to potentially an event like this, but maybe how the American government could be involved in the cause of it as well. And that's very much an obvious thing from the opening scene.
Yeah. Was I the only one stressing during the opening scene because the first line of dialogue is in English?
Yes. Yeah.
I was like, we've got to hit that 51% rule. No, it was,
I heard that English and I was like, oh no.
Here we
We
go.
somehow managed to not realise that the host was one of Bong Joon-ho's English films.
So, no, Scott Wilson of The Walking Dead fame. I guess he's been in plenty of other things, but
that's
he's
where I recognise
Herschel
him
from The
from.
Walking Dead. He's in a laboratory, and he's upset that some of the chemicals that they're working with in this laboratory are dirty. They're dusty. And he's like,
The bottle is dusty.
The bottle is
and he's
dusty.
outraged by this fact.
He's like, we need a clean environment. So he asks, and he has a South Korean lab assistant, and he says, get rid of it. It's like formaldehyde, I believe
Formaldehyde.
right?
Yeah.
Formaldehyde, and he's like, dump it, pour it all down the sink. We can't work with this. This is dirty. It's a contaminated chemical. Oh my God. Throw it down the sink, and there's some pushback of being
There's
like,
pushback, and he says it's going
this
to
is formaldehyde. It's going to go into the
into
one
it,
river.
yeah.
Like it's going to damage the ecosystem.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh well, it's a big river. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
And this is based off of a real
I can't
life
believe.
incident.
how crazy
Yeah.
is this? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Which is insane. And I mean, a real life incident where an American scientist poured formaldehyde into
the
a South
drains.
Korean river.
Yeah.
From that, what I love is that Bong Joon-ho can go, I can see this, I saw this story as a South Korean citizen. It angered him to be the fact that an American would be so blasé and inconsiderate to the ecological effects of pouring this into, his country's river. But then for him to be like, but imagine if that formaldehyde turned a fish into a mutant creature and it killed people and it attacked the city, and America still went, no, South Korea, it's not that, it's this. Like blatantly lie about what. It's an incredible commentary of being like, America is saving face. And it's funny because I read he doesn't say this is necessarily an anti-American film. Bong Joon-ho doesn't hate America, but he hates corrupt systems. He hates corrupt political systems, government systems, and
that's very obvious through a lot of his films.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You
Yeah,
look at
yeah.
Snowpiercer, obviously that's not an original film, but it's a project that he would have been drawn to because of its themes and its commentary. You look at Parasite.
Yeah.
You look at even Barking Dogs and Memories of Murder. There's so much about class structure and systems in there. So it's obviously a theme that really resonates with him.
Yes. So so that opening scene is very much so immediately sets you up with not just the tone of what the host is going to be like, but Bong Joon-ho plays his cards early, and he goes, "This is the central that you were about to see a monster film, a creature feature, but this is the theme of the film of being like how corruption and inconsideration can lead to something truly terrible." And then the film then plays with the themes of like covering it up is worse than dealing with the problem, especially at such a high political level. But at its core, much like Bong Joon-ho's many films, it's also a family drama, and Song Kang-ho plays Gang-do, and he's just a battler. He's a vendor. He's just like, I'm selling.
Sleepy battler.
Sleepy battler.
Just sleeping.
Has the change
Man
on
loves
the
a nap.
He loves that. Has the change on the counter and
a
hoping
squid
that
leg.
people will be. That's there is great. Short-changing people on
It's great
squid.
because that sort of really sums up his character so quickly without us having to, he's
Get all
asleep
his
on the job.
backstory. Yeah.
His dad, who runs the snack stand with him, wakes him up and is like, "Hey, get up! We've got customers ordering food. Go and grill this squid." And while he's grilling it, he just decides to take one of the legs off and eat it.
I love it.
And then
gives them-
leaves the barbecue and it's burning.
and he's shortchanging customers, stealing from the till.
I do love that when that comes back around a little bit later and is like, here's a squid. it's got 10 legs on it this time.
Yeah. But it's a great way to give us everything we need to know about him as a character.
Yeah.
In such a short space of time. You know, he has a young daughter who he obviously really cares about, but outside of that, he's pretty incompetent and buffoonish.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And his dad is very much, who is more commonly referred to as like the grandfather in the film, is very much sort of, I can understand the tumultuous relationship between a father and son in that aspect as well, and sort of why he just kind of doesn't give a shit about anything, to be honest, until he has to.
Yeah.
Until it's almost like this monster attack is like the inciting action for his character to actually wake up and do something.
Yeah, because he really takes note before his daughter gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
He's really sort of involved and you know, trying to help out the situation, which is like a complete flip of where you see him before.
Yeah.
So the grandfather, or Gang-doo's father, is Hee-bong. And Gang-doo also has a brother and a sister. Brother who comes in a little bit later in the film, but Namil, and his sister Namju, which sets up a fantastic sort of difference between the siblings in this film. Is that, you know, he's running the snack shack for his father, while his brother's out there being a well-known political activist, and the sister is I don't think she's an Olympic.
Archer.
She is Olympic, Olympic archer, going for the gold medal. But again, like you said with Gang-doo's character, with the archer, she is set up in one scene of she's going for the gold medal shot and she hesitates and times out and is unable to win the gold medal.
And like you hear the commentary from the TV saying like, oh, you know, she's hesitated again. Like she always, you know,
she
gets
does
in her own
this
head and psychs
all the
herself
time.
out.
And it's just, it's all you need character setup wise. And then it also sort of instills, if you are thinking about it, where that payoff is going to happen potentially later on in the film. And you know, I think Bong Joon-ho, not skipping to the end, but it has some fantastic payoffs in the end of this film, but also is still able to shock you narratively with
I think
certain
like,
things.
and I think an interesting question is, because this, in the way it is a creature feature, but also quite character driven,
Very much so, yeah.
really reminded me of Godzilla -1.
Yes.
Which I've still yet to see.
Oh,
it's
okay.
fantastic.
It's on Netflix now, so there's
I've
no
no
excuse.
excuse.
Yeah,
But I'll still find one.
But like a film, Godzilla -1, the reason it works so well is that it builds character development and you really care for the characters.
Yes.
And I think an interesting question is, why can't Hollywood seem to do that? Like, you watch these...
Yeah.
You know,
Godzilla and Kong.
Yeah, and we've always said the most annoying part of those films is the human side of it,
characters,
because they just don't get it right.
Do you think it's the refusal to sort of make, especially in sort of like, you know, big blockbuster Hollywood mainstream films, it's this refusal to make people human? Like, you can't have Chris Pratt being, you know, an incompetent buffoon. He's got to be his character from Jurassic World, whereas, you know, the big Chad of the movie. Like, you know, you wouldn't get Song Kang-ho's equivalent, you know, playing part Gang-doo, like this incompetent,
you wouldn't, would you?
No.
Lazy guy who sort of like, I don't know, people will probably say that there's examples of it, and I'm sure there are, but I just feel like it takes itself so seriously, Hollywood. Like, it can't have fun. You know, and then we do get films where you sort of do have main characters who are like this. I think of The Nice Guys and Ryan Gosling's character in that.
Yes.
Like, again, like so incompetent and bad at his job, but he's sort of thrust into being the hero of the story almost. But that was a flop.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like,
you're right.
we want to see these action stars. We want to see Vin
that's
Diesel, The Rock playing the same character 10 times.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, if we're tangent really quickly on this discourse, I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that the majority of moviegoers are just looking for something easy to escape. Something like The Host isn't necessarily, I wouldn't call it like a challenging film, but it does require a certain amount of investment from you in regards to emotions, in regards to thinking about the political nature of South Korea at the time, thinking about, you know, everything sort of this commentary that Bong Joon-ho has in this film, as opposed to Godzilla Kong the New Empire being 2 hours of smashy bashy crashing. And it makes $500 million worldwide. So the difference is that I think people want to go and just be like, smashy bashy crashy. As opposed to
for a creature feature.
And there's a place for both sorts of films, right? But I think it's always fun, and why the reception, because the reviews of The Host when it came out were astronomically good. Some people calling it the best monster film of all time. But in the sense of, similar to Godzilla -1, the creature feature moments are pretty fun and they're pretty exciting, and the effects are great, and there's a lot of tension and there's a lot of excitement, but you care about the characters. And I would say ultimately, you would sell this as a creature feature, but this is a character drama at the end of the day. Like this is there's a big majority in the middle of the film.
Godzilla Minus One's done so well as well, which
exactly
is great,
right.
isn't it?
It's fantastic, and it's a known character though as well. So it's
right.
taken what we love about the IP of Godzilla and done something actually quite fresh and new with it as well. So it's so hard to jump into the mainstream with a new monster. It's a nameless monster. We don't ever get we get some good shots of it, but we never get the Godzilla reveal shot of it. You know,
but it is in the film a lot more than I think of. Was it 2016 or 2014?
2014 Godzilla. Yeah, Gareth Edwards film. Yeah,
he's in that for 20 seconds. You know, and that's all right at the end. And I get the point of it. It's like the horror movie element of it that you don't want to show the.
Well, it's the Jaws effect, right? Everyone talks about it how it's the Jaws effect.
But I think there's something to be said for the way that the host really puts the creature front and center.
Absolutely.
You know, it makes it really clear. It's seen in daylight. It's seen right out in the open. Right from that opening scene where it sort of, it goes on that rampage through the city. And it's there on full display for everyone to see. There's no hiding it in the shadows.
We should mention as well, I don't know if we said it at the start, this movie came out in 2006.
Yes.
Incredibly low budget, like you said earlier, right? So if you're going into this thinking that this monster's going to look like a modern day, like Godzilla and Godzilla Minus One, it absolutely looks like a CGI creature from the early 2000s.
Oh, it's PS2 graphics.
Yeah.
It's
100%.
It's not good.
But it's everything that's done outside of it, like in the opening attack scene where there's this random American citizen, which is not random. I'm sure plenty of Americans go to South Korea all the time. Works with Song Kang-ho's character with Gang-do to try and attack the monster, right? And he gets slaughtered off screen, but it's impactful, and the little bits they show of the monster's foot squashing something or him squashing the monster's tail is super effective, and it works really well for the scene that they're doing. And then you get later on in the film when the monster has this his little hibernation tunnel in the sewers, right? You get some really creepy shots of it emerging from dark places, and it's for the time and for the money, it's pretty damn good.
Yeah. I think going back to what you were saying as well about the difference between this and a Godzilla film, I think this can be enjoyed on a surface level. I think you can just enjoy it as a monster movie, without getting into all the deeper themes of which, because it's a Bong Joon-ho film, there are a lot. And we'll unpack that later in the episode, but there is a lot to take away from this movie other than it just being a movie about a sea creature that eats people.
You're right, actually. It does work on both levels. Yeah, you could easily watch it and not even think about that stuff, and it's still quite a fun...
It's because you care about the characters. It's exactly like you said. Being a character drama, you are invested in this father's pursuit for his daughter, and then the dysfunctional dynamic of him having to work with a family that don't really get along but love each other in that sort of dysfunctional way, I guess. So
I think he's seen as the family screw up for all the reasons we talked about earlier. But the sister, she's seen as a screw up as well, because like you said, she could have got the gold medal. She hesitated, which she always does. She messed it up.
And she's living with that too.
She comes home with the bronze medal. And the brother, who is a university graduate and a political activist, he seems pretty washed up and full of himself.
They mentioned once that he's an alcoholic as well, he's struggling with his alcoholism.
Yeah, I think
and stuff,
at the start of the film, he came to the daughter's performance at school,
and he was
and he showed up drunk, and so they're all imperfect, but all in a very human way, and I think that's character drama, that family drama, is what kind of drives it forward. I think anyone selling this as a hardcore sci-fi monster horror film, it's probably got close, it's probably closer to a drama. And
which is funny because Godzilla Minus One is the exact same thing. Sold as a Godzilla film, but you are watching a film that's realistically about post World War II Japan and how they had to try and rebuild after that.
I think that's why Japan succeeds so well at making Godzilla films, right? Because Godzilla's always been an allegory.
It's an allegory, right?
So you've got Japan making films about Godzilla when they're commentating on post World War II Japan and a nuclear war and things like that. And then America's just let's knock down some buildings.
And King Kong.
But I don't think you'd be misselling the film to call it a comedy.
No,
And
but
not in the way that Bong Joon-ho normally injects comedy into serious situations. I think this is just a straight up comedy.
yeah, wow.
A lot of the time, and I think
There was a lot,
it's funny.
especially through the start and stuff that I was laughing at.
Yeah.
Even when they think the daughter's dead, and they all turn up, the way they're crying,
the
is
reactions
so
they're
Like-
wrestling on the floor, basically trying to like outdo one another with
Yeah.
how sad they are
Yes,
about it.
yeah, yeah.
And like the news cameras are all like rushing around
Yeah.
taking photos of this devastated family.
Yeah.
And like the brothers are having a punch on because they're
That-
both crying. It's like, why are you crying? Why are you crying?
yeah, I know.
I think that's
that's
why I probably didn't connect with it as well straight away, because I was like, oh, this is really silly. And then you sort of get halfway through and you realize like, oh wait, no, this is intentionally silly.
it's funny because it's, to me, for a film where off that bat Bong Joon-ho has gone like, this is a commentary on, specifically the commentary on how governments react to a disaster and where that disaster came from, whether it's, man-made and whatever, you know what I mean? It's funny that he also is then poking fun at people's reactions to those things. And I think that's a great setup scene of, in a tragic moment, who is the most sad when a world tragedy happens, you know what I mean? Like, the first person to say thoughts and prayers is like, what are you actually kind of doing with that shit? Yeah. Later on in the film, when there's a protest against the reaction to how they want to kill the monster, all these young protesters who don't have a clue what's going on are all out there doing their thing, you know what I mean? And it's Bong Joon-ho being like, what are you really out here doing? And he's making fun of them because it's similar to that crying scene.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of young people going like, no, I can protest the best,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's very funny that he has that reaction.
In an interview with him, though, he's actually also reflecting on himself. 'Cause he said
that's
when he
interesting.
was at college,
That same thing.
they would literally be looking for protests.
Yeah,
Didn't know
just-
what it was
just
about.
something to protest,
Something, and they would be out every weekend doing it.
That's so interesting.
So
That's,
he's
I
like-
didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
funny.
The self-awareness.
That's
I mean,
right.
I'm not surprised. Like,
Yeah.
we can't sing his praises
That's
enough.
why he's
as
the
a
patron
director.
saint to the podcast. I think we're just going to have to start calling him Lord Bong Joon-ho from now on.
But how you were saying that, how you were not sure how to react to it, that's how I felt with Memories of Murder
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
through the
Okay.
start, because
the
of that
comedy just
slapstick
felt
comedy.
a bit
I'm like, is this
misplaced.
for me in that?
That's
Whereas
very
in this
interesting.
one, it didn't feel misplaced. I don't know why.
It felt-
Maybe because
It
it
plays
was
its
more
cards
of a,
early
Yeah,
on, for
it's
sure.
definitely
yeah.
a lot more deliberate in this, and that's why I feel
Yeah.
like I'd have no issues listing
it.
comedy as
Yeah.
a genre of this
Yeah.
film.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I
wow,
don't think it's just
okay.
got some funny moments. I think it is outright a creature feature comedy.
Yeah. It would be actually interesting to watch it with a group of friends.
You know what? That's a great point, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you're right. You would, have a really
I think
good
even
laugh.
when it gets to the laboratory stuff later in the film too, as well, it to me seems like this heightened look at like, not to spoil too much, but when Gungdu is taken in by authorities and things that happen to him seem like this super over the top thing, but there's a part of you inside that goes like, is this like, well, look at this conspiracy theory, guys. Like, maybe this is Bong Joon-ho being like, what if this was real? You know what I mean? And there's this really silly nature to the things that happen, and how he, not to spoil too much, how he escapes that as well, is so over the top. And I was laughing throughout that whole bit, but then you kind of go like, if the government's trying to shut down this, like, what else are they? And it's Bong Joon-ho just taking you down this absurd conspiracy-like rabbit hole. It's really entertaining.
This
but-
is the episode where Nick turns the podcast into a QAnon conspiracy theory.
Well, I've been on
I was
8chan recently.
gonna put on my alfoil hat and the virus and the Agent Yellow at the end, and like.
But that's what the movie's so ahead of its time in that as well. It's like, it's exactly what we're dealing with now. Is, not to tangent too far, but the most current season of time of recording of The Boys, season 4, plays around with that a lot as well. And it's funny. There's a certain episode where I watched something happen that had almost a similar effect to something I saw in The Host. Bong Joon-ho's just ahead of his time. He's just being
saying that, like, this is. What did you say? 2006.
2006, yeah.
So 14 years before COVID.
COVID happens, right?
And there's so many parts of that you're just like, whoa.
Well, when did Contagion come out?
2010 or 11.
Okay.
Yeah, okay,
So
because that's
very
another.
much-
Yeah, you're
But,
right.
but
That's
in saying that,
really-
the Host is very much like
Yeah.
that, because it's that commentary again on like, how would
deal
government
with a
react
virus.
to
Yeah.
Because they're not
that's
treating it just like a giant monster. They're
No,
saying like
it's a virus.
It's a virus.
America, and it's funny. America have said there is a virus that has come through.
Yeah.
And the South Korean government's gone like, oh shit, well it's made this fucking fish into a giant
Yeah,
monster.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
we gotta
Clearly.
deal with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agent Yellow is the
Yeah.
It's so,
I think
it's ridiculous.
I think the bit that really summed up for me that is like, okay, this is just a comedy, is about halfway through the film, the sister Namju finds out where the daughter is being sort of held captive
Yes.
by the monster in the sewers. And she's like, right, you know, both my brothers are doing their own thing. I'm going to go and rescue, you know, my niece on my own.
Yes.
And she runs into the sewers with her bow and a single arrow.
That's one arrow.
And you see the monster running down the sewers towards her.
Yeah.
And she's running at it. She draws the bow back. And, you know, you think, oh, she's going to shoot it in the mouth or something. And it's going to, like, die. And then the monster just, like, runs along, slaps it with its tail, and just knocks her out.
It's so
And it's
funny.
that incompetence, right? She's like, I'm going to go and take on this monster that killed, like, 100 people with a bow and a single
one
arrow.
arrow.
How much even that moment there was just me, like Bong Joon-ho being like, this is just a piss take on like how Hollywood as well treat the creature feature as well, like how one man can stand in front of Godzilla and take him down, and this one's just like, no, It's like, I'm a giant mutant fish, you idiot. Like, it's like, get out of here. It's great, but it's so funny.
It's so self-aware of even the stuff that's come after it, right? Like everyone thinks of that scene in, is it the first Jurassic World film? You know,
Where the chick gets...
is it Bryce Dallas Howard running in
in
high
the heels,
heels
yeah.
away
Yes,
from the
yes.
T-Rex?
Which to me was like, is absolutely taking the piss, like in an intentional way as well. And
Yeah.
then Kong Skull Island has the one, the guy goes to sacrifice himself with the grenades. So he's gonna blow up the lizard monster, and then he just gets hit out of the way and blows up on the side of a cliff. Like,
Well, that's another
it's
one.
hilarious.
This is a little bit of a spoiler, but it's fairly early on in the grand scheme of the film, is that they come across, they all get some guns from some gangsters.
Yes.
They go to hunt down this monster, they're going around the different sewers, and then they find the monster. They blow all of their ammunition trying to shoot it and miss every shot because none of them have used a gun before. And then the grandfather's like, oh, I'm out of bullets. The brother's out of bullets. And Gangdu's like, oh, I've got one bullet left. Throws the gun to the granddad. He's like, you guys run. I'm going to take care of this. He's staring down the monster. It's charging at him. Pumps the shotgun. Goes to shoot it. Pulls the trigger. Click. And then it cuts to Gangdu, and he's counting on his fingers.
That's so
And you just go,
good.
like, you just see this realization where he's like, oh shit,
no,
I
I
actually didn't have any bullets left.
I just killed my father.
Yeah, and then he gets eaten by the monster because he fucking miscounted how many bullets he had. How is this not a comedy?
Yeah,
It's a
you're
comedy.
right.
God, it's
And I think it was
wild.
just
But
a
it-
cut to, like him just being
Yeah.
like, 1,
Yeah.
2,
Yeah,
3.
yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah, you're right.
and that's a commentary on how good Song Kang-ho is as an actor.
When you think about his range from like Memories of Murder to this, where I mean he's incompetent both times.
Yeah,
but like a different
Parasite.
kind of incompetent. Parasite again is just a whole different beast. He's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But we do. I don't know if we want to transition to this now because it was brief.
Just quickly on, because like we've said it in Memories of Murder, we've said it in Barking Dogs, happens here as well. Bong Joon-ho is just so good at making you laugh at stuff that you feel like you kind of shouldn't.
Yes.
be.
Yeah.
And even though this is probably one of the more comedic ones, there's still, like, his father dies.
Yeah.
Yeah, his
and
father
you're
gets
laughing
eaten by a monster,
And you're kind of
you
laughing
think it's
at
funny.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a talent.
He's the
It's a
master,
skill.
I think, of that
doing it.
uncomfortable chuckle. Like
yes.
it's,
Yeah, yeah.
he's very, very good at that.
We mentioned briefly before recording that I just made an off comment that the frosted blonde hair of Song Kang-ho's
yes.
character feels like a whole character in itself.
Yes.
And then Kieran jumped on and was like, actually,
Ah.
I got something to say that. So I'm interested to see.
Well, thematically,
I'm intrigued.
yeah,
Yeah.
thematically, the film is heavily about the US's involvement in Korea.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and the Americanization and the Westernization of Korea, especially sort of post-Korean War.
Sure.
You know, in the 90s and the early 2000s. And it's also, I think, a response to the fact that Korean cinema became such a small point of Korean cinema.
Sure.
You know, Korean films were getting beaten out by these big Hollywood films.
Right.
And so Korean voices were being stifled. And so much of this film is a response to that. And it's even just the bleach blonde hair
Yeah.
of Gangdu is to make himself look more American.
Yeah, it's a good point.
you're
It's to make
right.
himself look more white.
Yes.
So there's all these little things that just kind of contribute towards this film. The host is not the monster. The host is America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The US is the host
Yes.
of Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it is the virus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I
Kieran
could be
sent us
talking absolute shit.
Kieran sent us a message after he watched this. It's like, we're going to have to do some research on this one. And he's come to fucking play. I love it. But it's so true because even with that, with this sort of critical commentary on America as well, a response from that was, North Korea loved this film
They
as well.
did.
They
They
really,
did.
they were like, oh yeah,
Which-
we hate America too.
Which is really rare for them to.
Super rare because they're like, we hate South Korea,
Yeah.
but we hate America just that much more. And so
It's almost
just-
like North Korea watching the host is almost like Adolf Hitler watching the Great Dictator.
he's like, oh, this is great. Wait a second.
Hans, are we the bad guys?
It was like the new photos. Like, is this fucking play about us? Oh, it's great. But yeah, this I think what Bong Joon-ho, and we've said it now for 2 of his films, and I'm sure we're going to say it for the next 2 films we talk about of his, is that his ability to actually have something quite poignant to say about his country and the way it's run, and not have it in a way that's critical with bashing, because he obviously loves his country, and like obviously with that interview he felt passionate enough as a teenager to be want to fight, even if it was quite blindly, fight for causes in his country. He found his voice in film and his ability to say something through that, but then have an exciting creature feature and make it funny as hell and get actors who are really good. It's
Because the performances in this are really good.
They're really good. Yeah.
Insane.
yeah,
You
really
think
good.
about an equivalent film in America, right? Like a fairly low budget, $10 million American monster movie. I can just imagine the terrible performances that would be served up in something like that.
100%. Yeah.
Whereas this hinges, as we've said, it is a character family drama. So much of that hinges on you relating to and empathizing with these characters. And I don't think that would happen without such
Yeah, and
strong
you're certainly not going
performances.
to get a Song Kang-ho in
No.
in one of those like.
No.
He said like when this came out, that was a reason it did really well. He's such a big name in Korea.
Yeah.
That it just broke the box office.
That's it. So it's like getting,
It's like getting
Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio,
to do a
Matt
$10
Damon.
million
Yeah.
creature feature, which I'd love to see. To be
It would
honest,
be incredible.
They've got enough money. If I had that kind of money, I'd be doing silly stuff as well.
Exactly. But I mean, on the whole America thing, I also think he isn't shy at also putting blame on the Korean government either. Like it's not
100%.
just a it's not just a bash America. It's like
Like
the
you said,
whole
it's not
system.
it's not an anti-American
No,
film. It's just very much a criticism on how
on the system,
the
and-
ineptitude of the system, and how the people who are in charge
and
are
I
so
kind of-
willing to sweep things under a rug.
Yeah, and
just
really quickly react.
Yeah.
Like before they really know what's going on. Like they
100%.
react so quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then that's what sort of why Gang-do ends up in the situation he's in, because they
Yeah.
find out that he came into contact with the
With the
monster.
creature,
Yes. Yeah.
But obviously survived the attack.
Yeah.
So they kind of
must
quarantine him.
And he gets
Because where he's behind that clear curtain,
That's-
and he's
yeah.
just like that. I mean, that's funny as well.
Yeah, trying to
so-
argue with someone and threaten them when he's behind, like
Clear
inside a
curtain.
clear
It's
tent.
pretty funny. Yeah.
It's the more you think about it as a comedy, the more it all starts to make sense. And I think if you watched it with that in mind,
Yes.
it changes your perspective of the film
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe why I didn't get as much enjoyment out of it as I'd probably hoped.
Sure.
Is because I think it took me a little while to clock
Yeah.
that, okay, it's being deliberately silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Do you think part of that deliberate silliness as well comes into play with that final 15 minutes of the film where we kind of do get this over-the-top explosive, not explosive, but very sort of ridiculous action set piece as well involving...
It really comes out of nowhere, because I mean, it's a monster movie, right? You know where it's going to go.
It's
It's
like
going to
you
come
want that
down to a
payoff,
big
yeah.
final battle.
Yeah.
Right? And it just goes full-blown action movie.
It does, yeah.
Which is so out of place and weird, but it works,
It
because I
works,
think
yeah.
the tone of the film never takes itself too seriously, which is mad when you think about the fact that he is talking about, basically we're fighting for Korea.
Yeah.
We're not fighting for Korea against a monster. We're fighting for Korean identity over, the US's involvement and the Westernization and the Americanization of South Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like this is a fight for our own cultural survival.
Yeah, absolutely. Ever since you've just said like America is the host, that just hits that home even more, right? Like
and
that's,
then like using the Agent Yellow, which is
Agent
obviously
Orange.
Agent Orange,
right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, and now you're
scene
saying
is-
that as well. That makes that even more poignant.
That scene is so intense
Yeah.
when they're
Yeah.
bringing that
Yeah.
across to the water and
Yeah.
like if
The
you
counting down.
Yeah.
if you can hear this over the speakers, you are too
Too
close,
close.
and like everyone is.
But
too
I
close.
also like just
Crazy.
the commentary on just basically dropping that on the public.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if
No
you're
warning.
in the way, that's your fault. We've told you to move, but yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
I don't have much more else to say. Is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up?
No, I think we've covered it. I think if that kind of sounds like your kind of movie,
Yeah.
a monster movie that has a lot of deep themes behind it that you can go and read up on and really take a lot out of, but you also want plenty of laughs.
Yeah.
It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's
I
a lot
think
of fun.
going into it knowing it is funny is
It's a bit silly.
Yeah.
is a good place to start the film.
I think you're right. I think we're gonna have to rewatch it as well because I didn't have a bad reaction to it.
Yeah.
But there were I was almost similar to Kieran. I was watching it and I was like, what is this trying to be?
That's so funny because that's
that's-
with Memories of Murder.
Yeah.
But
But-
Kieran and I are psychos and we love
No. I mean, look at
shit. Tune in next week to Bong Joon-ho.
look at the acclaim of Memories of Murder. I mean, everyone loves it.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Well, this
I'm
was
on my own.
incredibly highly
Yeah.
acclaimed as well, and still is. So.
I mean, we haven't seen all of his films, but just what I know from the critical acclaim of his movies, he doesn't have a bad film.
No.
But
no.
yeah, that's it. Barking Dogs
This-
is probably the lowest rated, and that's still quite renowned by a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one at the time did the best, as we said.
Sure.
This really, even though if people look back, probably Memories of Murder would be one
Yeah,
of the ultimates, but
yeah.
this is the one that actually put him on the map.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
And then he...
'Cause it did well in America as well, didn't it? Yeah,
And
yeah.
he went to America for some festivals. He then, it was a really sweet interview. He sort of said he didn't even know there were such things as agents
Wow.
up until then. And then all these
Wow.
agents were trying to get it. And,
Yeah.
and then he got his first agent.
That's incredible.
But then
after
he
three
was
films.
that's right, after 3 films.
Yeah.
Then
And
still
then-
followed it up with another South Korean film.
Yeah, but then
afterwards,
he
which is
said that the studios were just sending him so many scripts on monster movies and
right,
sci-fis.
they,
and,
Yeah.
stay in your lane
and,
sort of
and
stuff.
it's funny,
right?
he
Yeah.
said that he would read a bit of it and then he'd put it on the corner of his desk and he'd just let them pile up.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
was always going to write his next movie, like he never wanted to do it.
Oh, it's funny in a way, like you look at his first, because was Snowpiercer after Mother?
I
Yes,
believe so. Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's sort of gone
Yes, it
like a
was.
comedy in Barking Dogs
Yeah.
to a thriller
Yes.
in Memories of Murder
Yeah.
to a comedy in The Host. I'm calling The Host a comedy.
No. Yeah. Fair.
Yeah.
To a thriller in Mother.
Yeah.
To like a sci-fi in Snowpiercer, which
Yeah.
The Host has elements of sci-fi. So it's sort of
Yeah.
like he kind of balances them out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you're right.
And Parasite, thriller,
Yeah.
Mickey 17,
Who knows? We don't know what it is.
looks like a sci-fi.
Looks like a
does look
sci-fi
sci-fi,
thriller. Yeah.
yeah.
So it's
Okja has that sort of that
Yeah.
sci-fi
Yeah,
fantasy
yeah.
element.
So it's
to it as
almost
well.
like he's kind of going, thriller, sci-fi.
Yeah.
And with a bit of comedy
Yeah,
there. So
yeah.
he definitely likes to balance
Because
it
have you
out.
both seen Okja as well?
No.
It's probably up there with The Host as like a very intentionally very
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It has a very strong ecological message in it as well,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
very much
It's good.
It's good, and it's Jake Gyllenhaal doing his, I'm throwing all inhibitions to the wind and playing the silliest character you could ever imagine. So it's a win for everyone.
Shall we get into some ratings?
Yeah, this is. I don't know if I want to start because I don't know if my ratings change now after the
Yeah, okay.
conversation, and it's.
I mean, I don't mind starting
Josh
because I
just
actually
knows.
really liked this.
Yeah.
I watched it 2 days ago, just in the afternoon, and I sat here and I was enthralled, and I was laughing and like picked up on all those commentaries,
Yeah.
and I really liked it.
was
I
insane.
give this like a strong 4,
Wow.
like a strong. I'm
Close to a 4.
A double shot
like
four,
kind of
yeah.
getting close to it. Yeah, I
Yeah,
really
wow.
liked it. Yeah.
Interesting.
I love that.
Mm.
You're next.
Nick bases his opinions off of our opinions.
Yeah, I'm like,
He
I'll
goes
just go in
in the
between. I'll
middle.
keep everyone happy. Yeah. No.
It's like he wants to see if his 2 is too spicy or not. For me, it's probably a strong 3.5.
Yeah.
You know, I think it could go up to a 4.
Yeah.
I don't think it would drop below a 3.5. But usually my sort of thing is if I feel that it's between two scores, I'll usually round down because you know, if it's a 4, I know it's a 4.
Yes,
if I have to question it, it's probably not.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a 3.5.
Yeah.
But I'd still strongly recommend it.
Yeah.
And I think, if you go into it with the mindset that it is a deliberately very silly, I keep saying silly, but I feel like that is just what it is.
But that's not. I feel like we get the context why it's not in a degrading way.
No.
It's just like it is very intentionally ridiculous. And heightened, and it's
just those couple of scenes that we mentioned. I mean, even I didn't pick up on this when we were watching the film, but there's a character in there who's one of the brothers' old activist friends.
Yes.
And I didn't catch his name in the movie, but just looking at the character list on Wikipedia, he's listed as Fat Guevara.
Yes, I did
play
see
on
that.
Che Guevara.
Which is pretty funny.
He's a pretty, fat guy.
Yeah.
And he's an activist, so I just love that he got the
And
name
then
Fat Guevara.
But it's also funny what he does then in that scene as
Yeah.
well. Like, and you kind of like, you're a dick, dude.
yeah,
Like,
he's trying to help out his friend. And in the back room, there's all these, police officers waiting because he's tipped them off because he wants the reward money for capturing him because he's escaping from the cops to try and kill the monster. And it is just a funny film.
Yeah.
And like I said, 3.5, but could easily go up to a 4, I think.
I mean, it is ultimately a fish running around the streets.
Yeah,
It is a giant
It's a
man-eating
giant fish.
Yeah.
So
And it doesn't look like a big scary monster like Godzilla.
No.
It looks like a deformed mutant fish with
yeah.
legs.
yeah, it does. Yeah.
I walked into this room today at a 3.5.
Yeah.
But I'd be very interested to see what happens on a rewatch now after this chat. And that's actually quite indicative of like the show in general, that generally happens.
It is.
And I think, because I was in the same boat as Kieran, I think I spent the first probably half of the film just trying to figure out exactly what it was while still enjoying it. But yeah, once I got the idea, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be very much like a... Satirical is the wrong word, but I mean,
it is.
it's like satirical sort of commentary on...
I think it's a satire in the same way that, Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a good.
That's a great movie.
It is an outright criticism over, Doctor Strangelove is a criticism and a satire of the Cold War.
Yeah.
And I think this is a satire of post-Korean War America and Korean relations.
Yeah.
Just with a very entertaining creature feature. As its foreground.
It's weird to say, but the monster is secondary.
Yeah, it really is.
To the character drama, to the comedy.
I think you
and
can
to the
feel that
social
in the middle of the
commentary.
film. I think you can definitely feel that at points, but if you're invested in the characters, the payoffs are brilliant. So yeah, at 3.5, but I would not be shocked if we do the group rewatch and all have a little giggle together. Like a bunch of schoolgirls, it'd be good fun. But yeah, 3.5 for now.
Good one.
But that is the host, the second week of Bong Joon-ho. If you haven't picked up on that yet, well, that's a you problem. But that means we have one more week to go in this this Christmas-like month for cinephiles, for our patron Saint Bong Joon-ho. And we're going to cover his follow-up feature to The Host. So we've gone 3 for 3 in a row. Mother, which is maybe a return to form for the thriller genre that he was
Back to
so
thriller.
well known for.
And none of us have.
I hadn't seen that going into
No,
this.
this is the first time viewing. So if you want to watch Mother before the next episode comes out, it's a 2009 film. Don't confuse it with the Darren Aronofsky film with the same name.
There's
Great
quite a
double
few
feature,
films on there actually.
Oh,
that came
I
out,
had
but-
to search
Yes,
for this.
this is hard to
This
find.
was hard to find in
Yeah.
Australia.
But it is a neo-noir thriller about a mother who, after her intellectually disabled son is accused of the murder of a young girl, attempts to find the true killer to get her son freed. So very much in that Memories of Murder vein of crime thriller. So if you want to watch that before the next episode, which will be out a week after this one.
Yeah.
But until then, thank you for watching the show. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel or to the podcast feeds, make sure you do. That 1 Inch Barrier on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everywhere that you can find us. We're there, even under your bed late at night. Which probably bodes well going into Mother next week.
All three of us. It's a tight fit.
yeah. Especially if you got a single bed, you should upgrade. But
We're getting a bit too close under there. You know how we were talking about basements as well?
Oh.
And there's always basements in
Oh,
Bong.
yeah.
There's no basements in this one, but it does take place
takes in a
sewers.
sewer.
Sewers.
The basement of the world, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a city basement.
it's a city's basement.
Good
So there we
point.
go.
Good point.
Man
Until
loves
next week.
dark, dank locations.
We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
See ya, bye.